All right, we did a distance formula, right? So now we're going to do midpoint. Let's just write down the midpoint formula for right now. The first problem for midpoint is pretty straight up, nothing fancy to it. You just plug stuff in, you get a midpoint. Remember what that is? X1 what? Plus X2, right? You add up the x's and divide by 2. Yeah, it's midpoint. That's why you divide by 2, right? Find halfway in between. Everybody with me? Javon, you with me? Okay. Okay. Eyes up here. So that's the midpoint. Look at number 11. Now again, they give you a graph. Now on the test, I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure that I just give you the points. Okay, you don't have to look at a graph to figure out what the points are. I'll just give you the points, and then you just stick it into the formula. It makes it a little bit easier. All right, but it's not that hard to figure out these points. Look at 11. We're finding the midpoint of line CD. So here's line CD. We're trying to find the midpoint of CD. So let's write down the points for C, and then let's write down the points for D. So look at C. We already did that point earlier, didn't we? What is that? -2, -1. Okay, and now look at point D. Where's that? Can you count over? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it 5? -4. Okay. 5, -4. So there's our points. Now what are we trying to find? We're trying to find the midpoint. Okay, make sure that you read the problem, because these problems will look very similar to each other, won't they? One will say find the distance between these 2 points. Another problem will say find the midpoint between the 2 points. Make sure that you use the right formula for the right question. And I say that, and you're probably thinking, well, of course I'm going to use the distance formula for distance. Why would I use the midpoint formula if they say find the distance? It sounds crazy, doesn't it? But I'm telling you, it happens every single year that people get them mixed up. So that's why I got to tell you to make sure you read it, make sure you understand which one is which. All right? So let's do that. Let's find the midpoint. So we put our parentheses and we add up the x's. So what are my x's here?
-2
Plus 5, right. See, these are the x's right here, aren't they? They're the first ones. And then you put that over 2. And then it's -1. Yeah, plus -4, or just -4, right? Isn't that the same thing as plus -4 over 2? Let's do this. -2 plus 5 is 3 over 2. -1 minus 4 is -5 over 2. Now do you see why you don't want to write that as a mixed number or a decimal? Because we're already done, aren't we? It's already simplified. We got it right there. That's our answer. That's all there is to it. Plug and chug. That's all that is. Okay? Is that funny? Plug and chug? I guess so. Alright, let's take a look at number 12. Number 12, out of all the ones we've done today, is probably the more difficult of the ones we've done today. It says find the coordinates of a point E. Alright, so we are trying to find the coordinates of a point E. So I put an E here. I don't know what the coordinates are, so what do you think I'm going to put in there? How about X and Y? Okay, and you can put 1 if you want to. X1, Y1. I'll just put X and Y. Is that alright? So we're going to find point E if what? C is the midpoint. So I'm going to write this. Midpoint is C. And do we know point C? Look at the graph. Yeah, what is point C? It's -2, -1. We've used that a couple times already, haven't we? Alright, and C is the midpoint of AE. So watch, I'm going to put A right here, right above the E. Look at point A. Do you know where point A is? -3, 1. Now look what I have. This is my line segment right here, AE. Do you see it? And that's in the middle of it. That's the midpoint of it. This is a little bit different. It's a lot similar, right, to the midpoint one that we did before, but it's got a little bit of a different twist to it. So let's write the formula down first. I always write that down so that I know what it is. So it's x1 plus x2 over 2, and it's y1 plus y2 over 2. Alright, now I can fill some stuff in. Now this time, do you see the difference on this problem compared to before? This time they actually tell you what the midpoint is. So I'm not going to find the midpoint, they tell me the midpoint. And so what do I put in this spot right here? What is it? Give me the -2, -1. Good. Alright, so that's where the midpoint goes. You see it? Equals, now we got to do this. What does this represent? The x's on the endpoints, right? Well, here are my x's right here. So what do? I add them up. So remember on the other problem, you knew both of those numbers, didn't you? But on this one, you don't know this, but I'm still going to write it as an x. So x plus what? -3, or just x minus 3 over 2. Let's do the same thing with the y's. Look at the y's. Add those up. What's that going to be? Y plus 1 over 2. That's not too hard, is it? It's plus. It'd be -3 plus x, which is the same exact thing as this. Okay? I just like to put the letter first. Okay? You could go -3 plus x and 1 plus y, but isn't that exactly the same thing as what we have up here? It just looks a lot better, don't you think, with the letter out in front? Okay. Now, here's the key to this. It's this thing right here. Remember, these two things are equal to each other, right? Right? This is equal to this. So let's just take the x part of it. The x part of it should equal what? The -2. Do you see that? All right. And then the y part of this should equal what? -1. And so what we're going to do is we're going to write down a couple little problems, and we're going to put that in there. So watch. Let's take the x. X minus 3 over 2. What's that equal to? -2. That's right. Do you see how the x is equal to the x? So that's equal to -2. Let's do the y this time. So it's y plus 1 over 2 equals what? -1. Good. And now look, we just do a simple little algebra problem. Solve for x, solve for y, and guess what our answer is then? Whatever we get for x and y, that's this point E, and that's what we're trying to solve for. Okay? Very good. Let's solve for x. Get rid of this 2 right here. So it's being divided, so we always do the opposite. So we multiply both sides by 2. Right? It's just basic algebra 1 stuff. Agree?
Yeah.
So that cancels. What do we get? X minus 3 equals -4. It's -2 times 2. Add a 3. There's a big difference, though. Make sure you don't just blow that off. Make sure you do put the negative there. So you add a 3 to both sides. What's x equal to then? It's -1. Okay? Let's do the y now. Get rid of the 2. It's the same step, isn't it? Multiply both sides by 2. Multiply this side by 2. So y plus 1 equals -2. Subtract a 1 from both sides. What's y equal to? -3. Alright? Now, what are we asking to find? They say find point E, right? So it says find a point. How are we going to write our answer? As a point, as an ordered pair, right? Okay, which one goes first? And the second one? There it is. That's your answer right there. So it's a little bit more involved. I agree. It's a little bit more involved than just finding the midpoint given 2 points. But it's really not that much more difficult. Okay, it's just the part that's a little extra is this. You take this thing, set it equal to -2. This thing right here, set it equal to -1. We did them both, right? The math wasn't hard, was it? It was easy math. And then you got your point. So that is your endpoint right there. That's what point E is. -1, -3. David? You could use a graph, but sometimes the graph may not be very accurate for you, and sometimes that might mess you up a little bit. All right, so I want to be able to do it this way. If you want to use a graph to help you out a little bit, you could, but I think it's a good way just to learn how to do it like this. You do this a couple times, it's really not that big of a deal. No, that worksheet, I'm going to let you hang on to it until through Monday, okay? Because we're going to go over it again. Now listen, don't pack up yet. Just listen to me. I've given you all the answers to this worksheet, haven't I? All right. If you got a problem wrong, or if you didn't even try it because you didn't know how to do it, what you need to do this weekend is go over it again. Try to get the right answer. If you get the right answer and you figure out how to do it on your own, that's great. That's what it's all about, right? If you still can't figure it out, you come on Monday. We'll try to hit the rest of them on Monday, and then we'll take the test on Tuesday. Remember, test on Tuesday. Write it down somewhere, and please be ready for it. Have a good weekend.